Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm here with a tool mod tutorial. This is not my first one. I have a comprehensive, beginner-friendly tool mod tutorial that I walk you through all of the basic ways to use the tool mod. If you're someone who needs help with tool mod, I think that video is a good place to start. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll link it up above and below in the description as well. This one is a little bit more like semi-intermediate. I'm going to be talking about only the move function in the tool mod menu. I personally don't use it much, but it has its uses, so I'm just going to teach you how to use it in this video and go through some of the possible uses for it. So without further ado, let's begin. When we turn on the tool extension, the first option here is the move menu. And it says here it's a move XY function, and you can enter between -25 and 25 X and Y. I can't remember the exact term you use when you do like the math thing, but it's okay. I don't need the exact terms to do this. Okay, so this is the item that I'm going to use. I don't know why I just pulled out a random object that's from the Batu pack. We can see that you're currently in build mode now, and I have the actual white colored grid, the default grid in the game, turned off, and there is a and here we go. Sometimes it doesn't show up. I have no idea why, but anyways, it's up now, and you can see that there is this complicated grid surrounding this object that goes really far. I think this is 25 by 25. This grid, as you can see, has two different colors. There is the green and the orange. You can now very clearly see that there is an X and X here, and then there's a Y and Y here. I don't know if you learned this when you were in math class in school, but I'm just going to refresh your memory / teach you a little bit about basic math. I don't know if this is math. It's like the graph thing, like the chart thing. I really don't have the words for it, but I can show you what it is. It's like the axis thing. So these are axes. I want you to notice and remember that the green lines, which are the X lines, because X and the lines that are green are the same color, and then the Y and the orange colored lines are the same color. The proper term would be axis, so X axis and Y axis. Okay, and I am going to come out of the move object interface because I want to turn on the grid. It actually corresponds with the grid that the tool mod gives you, right? So remember that it's like the same grid. So I'm going to use the lots grid to show you some stuff. It's basically the same orientation. I'm going to use terrain paint to try to illustrate my point. Do you guys remember the chart that looks like this in class? Or maybe you've seen it in textbooks or pictures and stuff. Like there will be like an axis like this, where there's two lines, and then there will be like a kind of like a line here that starts from here, and then it goes kind of like this. Like it's like a I don't know what this chart is called, but it's like a chart, right? So there will be a line that goes like either like this if you're learning about exponential curves, or like whatever those graphical math terms. I hope you guys remember. Like in math and science, it's just a way of mapping things out. Okay, with this object as the main point, where I'm going to draw an axis. So for this object, there will be an axis that runs through its middle here like this. Ignore the fact that it's a jagged line. It's supposed to be straight. So I'm basically highlighting this line over here. So this is the x-axis that we see in the grid, right? And then similarly, we saw a y-axis, or like a line that's basically the y line. It goes this way, and then it kind of repeats itself throughout the whole place. Like it goes like this and this and this and this, and then the green goes down like that to replicate. So this is Y and this is X. In real math, with a chart like this line is always the x-axis and this is always the y-axis, just so you know. For our sake, it doesn't really matter because the grid actually tells you where x and y is, and that's all you need to know. And then you also need to know that going upwards and towards the right means it's positive, right? So if you go this direction, it is positive, and then if you go this direction, it is positive too. Usually the axes, when you actually use these charts, will have like the arrows here and here to mark out where the positive is as well. So it usually exists as part of the chart. So maybe I should draw this in. You get it, right? Which also means that this place here is a negative and this is a negative. Okay, so going upwards is positive on the x-axis. Going right is also positive on the y-axis. If I turn on the move object grid now, you can see that it's exactly that. There is green lines and orange lines. You can notice that the X markers, right, they only exist on the positive side of the grid with respect to where the object that you're selecting is situated. All the way to the end of the grid, you can see that X is here and the Y is here, but you do not see the corresponding X and Y here and here, because that's the negative. It's the way that TwistedMexi helps you figure out where positive and negative is. This is more like basic graph mapping thingies that you gotta have to know before we start moving anything. Feel free to join me with the practice. Try it out on your own with your mod in your own game as well. Sometimes when you practice along with the tutorial, you will understand better what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to teach. Try your hands at it, even if you're not actually building anything, so that you can kind of teach your muscles and your brain like what's going on. It usually helps me, so I hope it helps you too. So once you pull up the grid, and then you have this thing, and then this is basically 0, 0. Every time you start this move object menu, and then you get the item that you're selected in the middle of the grid, the item is situated at its original point. So say I want it to move to this point over here on the x-axis, so the green line. So I want it to move upwards by 1. I will type in 1, 0, because that would mean that I want it to move 1 in the positive and 0 on the y-axis. So I don't want you to move towards y, I want you to move towards x. So by doing that, it moved up basically. Actually, before I do that, maybe if I copied 1, I can show you how it looks like, okay? So once again, I will do 1, 0. There we go. Okay, so this is the original object. I just made a copy so that I can show you how much it moved when I keyed in 1, 0. So say I want to instead move this object not upwards but towards here. I'm going to have to type in 0, 1 because I don't want it to move upwards, but I want it to move along the orange line in the positive. Click OK and it will move over to this point. And then if I click back here to show you the orientation, you can see that it's moved this much. So say I want to move this quite far away, like say I want to move it around to here. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would mean that I will have to do 0 because I don't want it to move along the green. I want it to move along the orange, 6. And that will bring it all the way over to there. So if we come back here to check, you can see that it's gone to where I want it to go. Keep in mind, once again, that I just made copies so that you can see where the items that I've moved is located in comparison to where it was before. So when you actually move something, clicking on this object, but I haven't actually made a copy, and I want to move it upwards by 6 as well, I would do 6, 0, and it will move it upwards to 6, but there will not be a copy left behind. I just used a copy to show you where it was before, just so you guys know, okay? So coming back here, I'm going to go into move again, and I'm going to show you how to move things negatively first and then diagonally, okay? So if I want to move this, say 2 units over to this point over here, that will mean that I still don't want it to be moved along the green line. So I would do 0, -2 because I need to move away from the positive. This is 0, 0, so it means that it's a -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, yada yada yada, and then this would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know. So okay, 0, -2, and then it'll go over to here. The same thing will happen on the x-axis, of course. So say I want to move it 3 units downwards to this point, I would also move it -3 because I wanted to move along the x-axis, the green axis. I would do -3 and then 0 because I don't want it to move along the orange axis, and then it will go all the way downwards. You can see the movement earlier. Now I want to teach you how to move it diagonally. You can move it however much you want. It doesn't have to be within like this quadrant, for example. Okay, so all you have to do is you just have to count. Basically, it's quite simple. Let's say I want to move it here. So in order to move it here, I will have to count how many y and how many x it has to move. So this point here, I can see that it is 3 units away from the line of X that it sits on, and it's also 3 units of x-axis, the green line, away from where the y-axis that it sits on is at. So if I type in 3 unit by 3 unit, which means 3 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis, and I click OK, it will move all the way up here to where I want it to be. So it means that I moved it 3 up and then 3 across. You can also say 3 across the y-axis and then 3 up the x-axis. Either way, it's still going to be 3 and 3 to move here. I'm gonna go a little bit faster now and say you want to move this item to, let's just do right here. So this would be 1 negative away from X on the y-axis, and then it's 2 positive along the x-axis. I'm still going positive, so I'm still going upwards, but I'm going leftwards away from the y. You can just kind of visualize like, oh, I need to move it 2 units upwards, and then I need to take a -1 unit step on the y-axis, the orange axis, to get to the point that I want. So I'll type in -1, and then I'll be able to move it to this point here. So if I come back to the original spot, you can tell that I've moved it to where I wanted it to be before. If you ever want to move it like by 0.5 number, 0.75, 0.25, you can do that as well. This is just a grid that shows you the full number, but for example, you might want to move one of these in between these two. So this one is located at -3 and then this one is at 0, right? So it means that I want it to be at 1.5, basically like -1.5 on the x-axis. That would mean that I would just have to type in 1.5, -1.5, because it's going away from the positive axis and downwards from where it was supposed to be. And I'm not moving it along the y-axis, the orange axis. So it means that I will type in 0 where the y is. And then that will move it directly halfway. So if I turn on the move grid again, you can see that it's right directly in the middle. This logic just basically applies for however much you want to move things. You can do any sorts of decimal numbers. You can also move multiple items all together. If you don't know this already, you will have to watch the previous video in order to understand how to multi-select. Let's just use this formation here. Let's say I want to move this entire thing over to somewhere else, or maybe I want to make a copy of it, so I'm making a copy. You will also learn that in the previous beginners masterclass. It's still the same menu, but the X and Y is different already. It's moved downwards, so it's based off the bottommost point. I think it helps to know where the 0, 0 is. So we saw that X and Y is always on the second positive unit on the axis, so 0, 0 is here, right? Say I want to move it over across to here. The use of this move object is for precision. So there is a way to move this where you can just pull it over like this, and then you can do a very imprecise like rough manipulation to make it go into place like this. But if you want to move like just directly straight to the left on the y-axis, you can always just type in 0, and then you're gonna have to count. Like if you want this to land here, for example, that means that this drum will have to travel 1, 2, 3, 4, so -4 down the y-axis to be able to reach here. The rest will follow basically. So if I do 0, because I'm not moving on the x-axis at all, I just want it to move towards the left, I will do -4 because I want this to ultimately end here, which means that the entire formation is going to start from here and then it goes this way. Press OK, you can see that it's exactly where I want it to go. That's the basics, like for how to manipulate the grid and how to move things around on the grid. I'm now going to take away all of these little drums here. We don't need it anymore. I want to show you a build that I did because I feel like it shows very well what it could be used for in like a landed build. This is my build. This is the bare bones version of it. I just had it saved in my gallery, so I thought it would be a very good example of how I use the move menu to achieve this feature over here. This is basically a structure that I created with this item here, which is the 90-degree item. That's usually this big only, but I sized it up to that big basically. I can tear it apart so you can understand what's going on here. I have 2 of these right here like this, and then I have another 2 more here against the building to make sure that it's kind of like blended in nicely. And then I got these big ones that I used to form the bigger ones on top. And then I actually have the same ones driven into the ground. When it came to these ones on the floor, it's already in the ground. So if I were to adjust it, however, it would have been quite finicky to copy it and then like kind of move it like this. Like it will take me forever to find the position that I need in order to place it where I want it to go, essentially. Okay, so 0 by 1 would move the copy of this 90-degree structure over to the right by 1 unit. What I did for this structure was I just kind of selected both of them, make copies of the way that these two are spaced out, and then I want it to move across to here. But this time around, I want both of these things to move by 2 because I want this to end up here and I want this one to end up here, which means both of these will have to travel by 2, which means that I keyed in 0 by 2 and then they moved into place. So there is exactly, I'm gonna just select all of these, and then there is exactly like 1 unit of space in between each of these. And then I selected all of them, I made a copy of all of those, and I continued to do this to fill up this space as well, which means that I want this one on the left to end up here, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from where it originally was, which means that I typed in 0 by 4 and then it moved. And now you can see that according to the grid, it's precisely put into place. Of course, this is the very basic use of this when it comes to building. Anything that's like more mathematical, or like you need just some precision with the moving, or you need like an exact number of repetition and you want them to be placed in like an exact precise way, this is a very good way to achieve that kind of stuff, whether it be big scale or small, like within a room, like you want 3 apples to lay exactly in a row or something, and then you want to space them out by 0.25 for some reason. You can use this to help you. You can see that we can't actually edit this door, but you actually can. So all you have to do is draw a wall and then click on this door to select it, and then click on this makeshift wall to move it out of the way. Delete it. Choose the door of your choice. If you want to give it a very updated door, for example, oh, you can even do this one that stretches across the entire thing. I don't know why you would want a glass door, but if you want to, you can. The grid for this apartment is flushed and orientated to the lot. You will have to find the y and x axis. Even if you don't, right, you can just like trial and error, but I will try to find it if I can. I think from experience earlier, I know that x is supposed to be here and then y is supposed to be here. Let's say you don't know that, and then you're like just trying to figure out. You already know that the x is the green and then the y is the orange. It doesn't change unless you change the color. It's just a matter of whether it's plus or minus. So you already know that you don't want it to go along the green line. So all you need to do is do 0 for green, and then let's try 2 for the orange line, and then this will, because I already knew. But if you don't know, for example, and you did it the other way, then you just know that it's not -2 but +2, and then you just move accordingly, and you have your door. You have a new door. It's functional. I promise. If there's something in the hallway that you don't like, you can just pull it back into the house like this. Remember, anything outside here is not editable. You can't actually click on it, but if you have the tool extension, you can actually click on these things and move it in to remove them. This one is a little bit difficult because the grid is on a diagonal from the lot. So you don't really actually know how to do this. Like even I find it very hard to do so. So usually what happens is I tend to just like pull it over like this until I'm happy with it. Like I find that a lot easier to handle than to figure out like the calculations to bring it where I want it to be. Like it's not even exactly where, like look at the cross here, it's not where I want it to be. So there are some lots that does this. So I don't like to use the move function on lots that are diagonal, especially for replacing windows and stuff. You can, however, use the tool mod to replace the doors and windows just fine. Like you could just, like I said, do the classic pull it over way. I need to remove this rug so we can see, because this is like a 5 tile situation. I'm trying to pull everything all at once. This is the point at once. It won't be as precise, unfortunately, but it's better than trying to guess your way through that grid. I will kind of pull the windows and doors towards the front, and by finding the middle point and clicking it that way, I will be able to ensure that it is at least a little bit precise. Like it might not be fully so, but I will at least be able to sort of pull it into place. So this kind of looks like it's in place, like it's flush to where it is. You can see that it went a little bit awry, like it went a little bit over to our right now. So there's a gap here, and then this one is kind of eating into this. If I bother with it, I'll have to kind of redo it again and try to shift it around. I don't like to do that much. So I'll try to use this tool whenever I can, but when it comes to a diagonal grid, it's not possible. Hi, we're back on the lot. I'm gonna use our dear friend Triceratops, I think that's your name. Drago. Okay, his name is Drago. Okay, I'm gonna use Drago as our companion for the last part of this thing. So currently the grid has green and orange as its colors, right? You can actually change the colors and also the way the grid is shown to you. I'll show you the colors first. I think it's good for when you might have like different projects that requires you to see, like sometimes maybe green and orange is very difficult to see in some sort of terrains or backgrounds. It depends on your own personal visual needs. In order to change the colors, go to options at the bottom of the menu and then go to change settings again. You will see over here that there is a set move X color and set move Y color. Under a set move X color, you will be able to change like what the X color is. So it was green before, so I will change it to cyan, for example. And then you can set move Y color to an assortment of color. I highly recommend doing different colors so that you can actually tell the difference between the grids. So if I turn on move again, the grid has a different color. The final thing that you can edit and change for the grid is there's this toggle options in the settings menu. So in order to access that, it's just change settings. Under the options menu, there's this one that says use grid or not. So currently we're using the grid, so that's what we've been seeing. But if you turn this off, what happens is it shows you exactly what I've been trying to show you. I actually found this out only when I was making this video. So this was the axis that I've been trying to talk to you about at the start of the video. I didn't even know that we had this option, but honestly, I don't really see a point in this one. Maybe if you are really good at visualization and you already kind of know like what the increments are that you want to move things in, then maybe this would be easier to find X and Y. I think that's the only use I can see this for. Personally, I would think that having the grid is more of a better guide. It's like a surer guide. I'm more of a visual person. I can't really visualize with my head alone. So having the grid show me exactly how something is going to move in relation to where it is right now is very, very important to me, and it's quite useful. And I think it's going to be useful for a lot of people. So yeah, I don't really recommend using that, but if you see an application for that, then by all means go for it. I do appreciate you guys very much for sitting through this class with me. I hope I was successful in explaining to you how to use the move function in the tool mod. If you have any other questions or if you need further clarification, just reach out, comment down below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So all the best with building and learning how to use the tool mod. If you haven't watched my previous video, definitely go check it out, especially if you are still learning how to use the tool mod. I feel like it's going to be very useful to you, and I will see you in my next video, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point. Please remember to subscribe and like this video and share it with anyone who you think this video might be helpful to as well. That would definitely make me very happy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys, take care.